everyone, and welcome back to the channel where your likes, comments, and subs are always greatly appreciated. One of the questions that I commonly get when it comes to the R12 is, should I buy this? Would it work for me? And that's a personalized question depending on what your needs are, but I thought in this video today I'd show you two things. One, the main reason why I use the R12, and that's because it's a great little portable unit to record short things, and then I still have the touchscreen where I could do some light DAW-like editing where I can chop up some audio recordings, I can copy them, I can paste them, I can move them around really easy with the touchscreen. So I'll demonstrate that. And the other thing that I want to show you is a little stereo panning mix down trick. So I'm going to just record a short little audio clip here. It's a retro video game song. And the way that I did it is I sequenced it into the Roland S-1 synthesizer that I have down here. But when I originally sequenced it with a MIDI keyboard and I was recording the bass line with the melody, I didn't love the way that the S1 sounded with both the bass line and the melody in the same pattern, because you just couldn't really control the bass and get a good bass sound and then get the melody-like sound that I wanted. So what I did instead was I recorded a pattern that just has the melody, and then I also recorded a pattern that just has the bass line. But I'm going to record that into the R12, and then I need to chop up that audio that I'm going to record and be able to put the bass line perfectly in timing with the melody line so I could reconstruct the bass and the melody on the R12's multi-track recorder. So what I'm going to do is play the melody pattern, and then I'm going to put in a pattern that doesn't have anything to give me a little bit of a space, and then I'll play the bass line pattern. I have that routed from the S1's headphone out, so it's a stereo left-right signal, and then that goes to a 3.5 millimeter stereo breakout cable, which will then go into two mono inputs that I have up here for input 1 and input 2. So these are now TS connections going into input 1 and input 2 for left and right channels. I've got the gain set in concert with the headphone output for the master volume output here. And then when it comes to recording everything here, I'm making sure that I kind of keep the levels at about a -8-ish decibel rating in order to give me enough headroom to kind of play around with the track as I record it. All right, so let's go ahead and record that. I'm going to set the tempo to be the same. So the tempo here is 212. I set the tempo to be 212 beats per minute on the R12. I'm going to hit record over here, and then I'll play the patterns. All right, now my audio is recorded. I can move this to the side and then show you how I can edit the audio sample that I just created. All right, now what you can see is that I have my two audio tracks recorded. You can stereo link your tracks 1 and 2 during the recording phase if you wanted to, but I kept mine as mono because I'm going to use my little stereo panning trick that I want to demonstrate later on in this video. The first thing that we need to do, though, is create tracks that just have the melody, and then tracks that will just have the bass line. And you could see that I've got my melody over here, and then I had that pattern that was a pause, followed by my bass line. Now I need to separate these two things out, so I need to split the tracks. The first thing that I always do, though, when I'm doing some kind of editing work like this, is I copy the tracks just so I have a backup in case something goes wrong. Let's copy track 2 and hit copy. We'll scroll down and put this onto, let's just say track 6. So touch it again, hit paste. Now we've made a copy there. Move my timeline back to the beginning. Let's come back up. Touch track 1, the audio that's on track 1, touch it again, hit copy. And now let's move that down to 5. We're going to touch 5. Touch it again, hit paste. And now we've pasted a total replica on tracks 5 and 6. All right, so we don't need that anymore. Let's pull that up and let's mute these tracks. So we're not listening to them. We just know that they're there as a backup in case anything goes wrong and we don't lose what we recorded. All right, move the timeline back to the beginning. Let's go up and start working with tracks 1 and 2. Now I need to split them right there where there's that empty space. That's why I put that empty pattern in place. So we could move the timeline over into the area where there's a space, and we could zoom in to see with a little bit more detail and make sure we know where we're at. Right there. So that's fine. We could put that split in. So let's touch track number 2, touch it again, and we're going to hit split. All right, we've now chopped that up into 2 regions. Let's now touch track 1. Don't move the timeline marker, and touch track 1 again. And we're going to hit split. All right, we've now split up our audio regions. So we've got 2 audio regions on track 1 and 2 audio regions on track 2. Let's go and clean up and trim up the melody now. So this is track 1. What we need to do is move our timeline marker over to the starting point, and we can now zoom in for more resolution there and precision. All right, so we are now at the beginning point of where the melody starts. What we need to do now is on track 1, we're going to hit that little scissor icon. Now that that's in place, we could see that our timeline marker is going to hit perfectly where our melody is going to start. So we need to now move over to the beginning, and we're going to grab the beginning part of the recording for the audio track and move that over. You want to have your timeline marker in place, because once you start dragging things around, you no longer see the audio wave from your recording. So let's get that perfectly on the timeline marker there and let go. All right, now when we hit back, we've now trimmed up our melody, and we can now do the exact same thing for track 2. Scissors, come back to the beginning. Let's trim this up. Perfect. And now back up. We're good. So we can move this back to the beginning, zoom out a little bit. And let's move the melody to the beginning of the track that we've trimmed up. Let's move this over to the beginning of the track as well. We got to do the same thing for the bass line though. So what we can do here is take what is the bass line from track 2. Now let's just drag it down to 4 and move it all the way over. We're going to do the same thing for the bass line that's on track 1. Grab it, move it down to track 3, and then move it all the way over to the beginning. And we are at the beginning of the project song. Let's zoom in. Move the timeline marker over. And hit the touch track 3, hit the scissor icon. And let's drag this. Touch track 4, scissor icon. Okay. Now we can just move the bass line to 4 over, move the bass line to 3 over, and then put this into place. Now we should have our melody and our bass lines all together. So that sounds pretty good. You can see we've got our melodies on tracks 1 and 2 in stereo, left and right, and then we've got our bass line in stereo, left and right, on tracks 3 and 4. I did not link these. I just kept them as mono tracks. So some of the things that we could do now in Mixdown is we could play around with the way that it sounds, because recorded it in mono gives us a little bit more flexibility to do some things. So in again, the melodies on track 1 and 2. Let's touch track 1. Let's touch the number 1 for track settings. And here you've got your EQ and your pan. So this is the melody. Let's just create a little bit of difference between track 1 and track 2. I'm not going to go crazy with this. I'm just going to increase the EQ high by +2, maybe the mid by +1, and the low by -1. And for track 1, just to create some stereo separation and give the little tiny audio recording here some more depth, let's move this over to maybe right, I don't know, +10. So we've got this as right +10. Let's go to track 2, and we'll move this and pan it over, about like a left 9 or so. For that EQ, let's just go +1 on the high, +1 on the middle, and maybe -2 on the low, just creating a little bit of difference there. All right, now track 3 is our first bass line for the left channel. Let's pan that over to the left a lot. Like, let's go about 75. If you want to create just a little bit of stereo separation, you could just pan it maybe like 10 to 15 in one direction. If you really want it to be noticeable, you kind of have to pan it more than like 30 or 40. And once you get in this range where it's like panned 75 or so, you start to really notice it. All right, but I don't want to go completely over 100% panned to the left. For the low, let's increase the low by 2, maybe the mid by +1, and the EQ -2. All right, that's for track 3. Now for the right side of the bass line, let's move that over to like a +75 or so. EQ high, maybe -1, middle +1, low +1. All right, now we've just created a little bit of differences between our 2 mono tracks for the bass line and our 2 mono tracks for the melody. But when you listen to the song and you listen to the bass line, it has these like quarter notes that just kind of bounce. And I'd like to create this effect where it pans a little bit during playback, where you hear bounce, 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 bounce. And it's got a little bit of a rhythm to it. So I've set up this to be +75 to the left and then +75 to the right for tracks 3 and 4. If I just let that happen, you're really not going to appreciate like a bouncing effect. It'll just seem like it's a little bit stereo separated from tracks 3 and 4. But tracks 3 and 4, by and large, are the exact same recording. I need to do something more to create that bouncing back and forth effect. Now, if we want to mix down, and that's what I want to do here, you want to go to the fader view. And so in the fader view screen, you can now see your levels for all of your different tracks. I'll just play that really quick. All right, so you get an idea of what that looks like. We've got melodies on 1 and 2 and bass on 3 and 4. During the mix down, you have to hit the mix down option. It turns red. Now when we hit record on the R12, you'll actually be able to record a mix down. I'm going to demonstrate that, but I want to zoom out so you can see what I'm going to do now with the faders. All right, now what I've done here is kind of set my levels the way that I want it to play. I've staggered tracks 3 and 4, their faders, to be a little bit high and low. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these in real time while the song is playing. I'm going to try to move these back and forth between like sort of a +5 and maybe like a -5, -10, somewhere in there. And I'm going to move them up and down in real time to create that bouncing bass line effect manually during the mix down. So you should be able to hear, it might be hard to hear if you're just listening to this on your phone, but if you've got headphones on, hopefully you can hear a little bit of a bounce effect. So what I need to do is, again, select this mix down option, make sure that that is red on the screen, and I've got my timeline marker all the way set back to the beginning. When I hit the record button, it's now going to record a mix down of all of these tracks. All right, so melody on 1 and 2, bass on 3 and 4, then I'm going to move with that bouncing effect. All right, so it says mix down is complete, and the file's created in the SD card on in the audio folder. Now, admittedly, with a tempo of 212. That's a little bit difficult to shift, but you can do that if you've got a much slower tempo. It's kind of rare that you're going to use something at 212. But that gives you the mixdown file. And now the mixdown file is present in the audio folder of the SD card. It's going to have the name of whatever the project is, plus a couple numbers. If you keep mixing things down and you try different mix down effects, and you wanted to apply different effects, you want to play around with the faders and create 5 different mix downs and then listen to them later and see which one sounds the best, you can absolutely do that. And it'll just have whatever the project name is, 001, 002, 003 for all of your different mix downs. If you're interested in seeing the finished product, I made a video short, including some papercraft visuals that you could check out. I'll put it in the description below. Now, could you have done all the things that I demonstrated here with a computer and a digital audio workstation? Yeah, of course. It's really easy to do that stuff if you've got a nice monitor and a mouse, but you do have to turn the computer on. You got to have an interface. Your computer's probably not all that portable. Even if you've got a laptop, you've got USB cables hanging over to your interface, and it's not that convenient. Could you do what I demonstrated here on older multitracks? Yeah, for the most part you could. They usually have monochrome screens, and what you typically need to do there is set up all kinds of markers, A, B, C, D, where you're going to make your cuts to your audio track, where you're going to copy from C to D and move that region from track 1 down to track 3 and make those kinds of moves around. You can do that. It's just a lot more cumbersome using the menu system along with all of those markers that you need to place. I think that the uniqueness and the versatility of the touchscreen that's on the Zoom R12 and on the larger R20 is what sets them apart from other multi-trackers, but you have to want to and need to do that kind of light audio editing in order to extract the most value out of the R12 or the larger R20, because that's where the capabilities come from that are unique and set it apart from anything else, is the ability to just with a touchscreen tap on something, split up an audio region, move it from point A to point B by just touching it and dragging it with your finger or with like the stylus that I'm using. That's where the power and the value comes in from purchasing an R12 or an R20. If you're not going to use those types of features, you should probably at least shop around for other types of multi-track recorders to see if they're going to fit you better. All right, if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. That's all I wanted to cover for this video. I'll see you again next time. All right, goodbye.